Hello, my name is Jonathan Burness, and I'm here with another History of Poetry lecture for my History of Poetry lecture series. This time on a pretty, I guess one that's interdisciplinary in nature, that combines linguistics, obviously some history, and there's also going to be some psychology and some perceptionability thing involved. I was reading a little bit about how rare the color blue is in nature a couple months ago, and actually found out that there was some, history of poetry thing involved that I could share with, particularly in Middle Eastern poetry, ascertaining that the sky is green in a factual manner. So I decided to just really max out on this interesting phenomenon, and I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Classical Arabic and Persian poetry contains numerous instances in which the sky is described not as blue, but as green. These descriptions occur in verse that otherwise reads as observational and topographical instead of allegorical. This raises the question, how should we interpret this chromatic change? Um, we are going to proceed through close attention to the poetic record while also drawing on historical linguistics, perceptual studies, and atmospheric optics. It is not a speculative question whether the sky was literally green in ancient times, but a philosophical one. What did green mean in poetic usage, and how did the visual environment inform that usage? We're going to examine both what poets saw and how they said what they saw. In the Arabic Qasida, particularly those composed before and during the early Islamic period, poets like Imru al-Qais describe the midday sky in terms of greenness. Al-Mutanabbi retains the usage in context of intense heat and oppressive sunlight. In Persian, Hafez and Jami describe dawn skies as green, Sabz Azman, in a register otherwise aligned with natural observation. There is no indication that these poets intended the phrase to signify envy or decay, connotations that green might carry in other cultural contexts. Instead, green is used descriptively, frequently with reference to time of day or seasonal atmosphere. Commentators in classical Arabic and Persian literature, figures such as al-Tafsani or Shams al-Din Sabzavari, do not highlight the phrase as unusual. The poetic tradition therefore seems to accept green as a plausible descriptor of the sky. Color lexicons evolve independently of biological perception. In the case of Arabic, the term akdar does not correspond exactly to modern English green. It could also refer to fresh vegetation, blue-tinted shadow, or even the grayish tone of the sky before dawn. Persian sabs similarly covered a range from yellow-green to bluish-green. This lexical blur is not unique. Homeric Greek lacks a discrete term for blue, using glaukos for sea gray. Early Japanese ao referred to both leafy green and sky blue until the Meiji period introduced midori as a separate term. In biblical Hebrew, Yeruk, uh, green, occasionally describes the skin and even the sky. These linguistic patterns suggest that color perception itself is neurologically stable, but the linguistic boundaries drawn around perceived hues are determined by culture, usage, and metaphorical extension. What we call green or blue in English may not have been distinguished similarly in classical Arabic or Persian. Optical explanations for green sky references are not without plausibility. The Rayleigh scattering that results in a blue sky can be modulated by particulate content, particularly in desert climates, dust, humidity, and low angle sunlight, especially around dawn or dusk. can create green-tinted horizons. Volcanic aerosols and desert sandstorms contribute to transient spectral shifts. In observational poetry, the green sky may therefore correspond to specific light conditions, especially in pre-industrial atmospheric states where visibility and color tone varied more dramatically than in urbanized environments today. Additionally, vegetation density and surface albedo they affect the perceived tone of the sky by comparison. When the eye is surrounded by ochre, basalt, or date palms, the sky may appear greenish due to relational contrast. Of course, this does not suggest a change in Earth's physical constitution, but in the visual field from which such poetry emerged. Limits of naturalism. The consistent use of green sky across early Arabic and Persian verse indicates that its usage was not aberrant nor solely metaphorical. It reflects a convergence of environmental observation, of course, as we've said, cultural lexicon, and perceptual framing. Pre-modern poetry does not operate according to the same descriptive norms as 21st century observational writing, actually. Color terms, spatial relations, and natural imagery obey different semantic logics. The attempt to impose modern naturalistic standards upon ancient poetic description, treating it as flawed reporting, so to speak, misses the epistemological and affective role poetry played in constructing the seen world back then. To read ancient poetry responsibly, one must adopt models that allow for a sort of non-equivalence, where categories do not fully map but still encode real experience. The green sky is unequivocally not a mistake. Um, it is, however, it's some sort of portal into a sensorium structured differently. It is, to use Wittgenstein's terms, not a fact of the world, but of a form of life. All right, well, we cannot see. The inquiry into whether the sky was green in ancient poetry is one aspect of a broader limitation. This is just another romantic note, positive note we can leave on that leads to one of my favorite quotes. Just a side note. One of the most interesting things that I ruminate on in my life a lot is how narrow our perceptual field is. The visible light spectrum from approximately 380 to 750 nanometers represents only a minute portion of the electromagnetic range. Infrared and ultraviolet lie just outside this band, and we cannot perceive them without instruments. Similarly, our auditory range, roughly 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz or 20,000 hertz, excludes the sonic environments of whales, elephants, and bats. We do not detect magnetic fields, gravitational anomalies, or low-frequency seismic waves. Though these phenomena shape both animal behavior and geophysical processes, poetry, by giving voice to historical perceptions of the natural world, sometimes reveal these limits obliquely. The sky described as green may not correspond to the electromagnetic anomaly, but it does remind us that vision is really shaped by context, biology, and culture, and those can all be mutually inclusive sometimes. In this regard, Isaac Newton's remark remains appropriate. What we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean. The poet sensorium is a historical artifact. To study it is to widen the aperture of what we assume to be real. There is a list of references that we have used for research for this lecture. I thoroughly hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time, and I'm out.